So, confession time. Have you cried watching a Korean drama or Korean movie? Well, you're not alone. There's something powerful about how I find myself in these characters and help empathize maybe a colleague of mine or another person that I haven't thought of in that way. If you're feeling that, and if this is your first time noticing that, you're not alone. It's the very pattern that my friend Jeannie Y. Chang noticed as she continued to fall in love with K-drama, but as a therapist, how she found so many reasons of why it made sense we resonated with her expertise in therapy and mental health. It's because K-drama really dug deep in how they tell their story to help us relate, but also talk about mental health challenges and problems in a very creative way that helps us rethink about it. So she decided to connect the dots. Meet Jeannie. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist and certified clinical drama professional who founded Your Change Provider PLLC, an interdisciplinary practice to provide solutions in her unique framework, Cultural Confidence. But she is also better known in her role as the founder and CEO of Noona's Noonchi, where she offers mental health advice through K content and also provides opportunities to bring people together in person through her Noona's Noonchi Korea tour. That's right. In addition to following her on Instagram and YouTube and all of that, where you get K-drama and K-mental health tips, you can actually see her and go to Korea in person in her Korea tours. It's been wonderful and inspiring to see how she has used K-drama in a very creative and powerful way to talk about a very important topic such as mental health. But it wasn't as a clean journey as you can imagine. Today, she is a keynote speaker and an award-winning author where you'll see her work and references in many places. But she had a humble beginning. And so today, we'll meet Jeannie to dive into all of that. So welcome to Dear Workplace. I'm your host, Monica Kang, founder and CEO of Innovators Box, and we're continuing our series of falling in love with Korea. Let's meet Jeannie. Very excited to have my friend Jeannie here. Jeannie, welcome to the show. And in fact, a returning guest. I know we've had you in season 1 and season 2, but such a delight because since we've had you, there's been so much more work you've been doing, integrating Korean culture, and well as highlighting something very important, which is mental health and well-being. Tell me a little bit more, what first inspired you to want to integrate mental health through K-drama?
That's always a fun question I get. It actually came by accident. It was very natural. It was not planned in initially a therapy session. So a serious moment, and this was pre-pandemic, blurry on the years, but maybe like 2017, 2018, where this therapy session was not going well. It was a very tense session, family session, mother and daughter. And long story short, I was like, oh, this is not going well. I would say it's escalating. And then finally I just went, do you watch K-dramas? It was kind of like, whatever, let me bring something in. And the teen girl was like, yeah. So I got her attention. But long story short, and the mother's like, no, not really. But I've watched some like Thai dramas. They were like half Thai, half Chinese. Anyways, I decided to assign them homework. So it's not like we watched it in the session. And actually, we never have watched it in sessions because it takes too much time. But I said, why don't you watch this? And the K-drama that I talked about was Reply 1988. Do you remember that one?
It's one of my favorite. Yeah.
Right? But it was the only one I thought of. And I was like, I said, I want you to see the final episode. And it's really between father and daughter.
Yeah.
But I said, I just want you to watch it. And maybe there's something you can learn with the way they communicated. So long story short, they ended up coming back. They were definitely interested, like, what's this? What kind of therapist? And I had already been seeing them for a while, so they trusted me. But then when they came back is when I felt a shift. Like, they came back and didn't say, we're all better. No, they just went, by the way, we ended up watching the entire thing. I went, what? I said one episode, but I guess, okay.
Wow.
But they were like, they watched that episode together. They followed their homework, but they watched it separately because the mom was definitely interested in during the day when the kid was at school, she would watch it. And then the daughter watched it. And the whole point was they came back more open to talking and realizing their situation. And they gathered different things. So without sharing too much, they realized it was just a different way of doing therapy. And that was the beginning. But I didn't keep using it in therapy sessions, actually. I brought it into a workshop. And then it built from there. So
Oh.
I would probably say it built faster bringing K-dramas into my mental health sessions through workshops, like student workshops, student sessions, virtual sessions, and then it grew from there. But definitely that's how it started. And I just remember going, I think I'm onto something. And then when I saw the reaction in this workshop, when I said, do you guys watch K-dramas? Maybe 40% of the room was like, yeah. And those 40% did see Boys Over Flowers, which was the example I was going to bring in. They were like, yeah, I saw that. Again, it shifted the energy. And it was like a different way of talking about mental health, a serious subject. And then it worked. And I think, honestly, the start of the pandemic, it grew from there. So it was a natural way to bring it in because I thought it was just a different way of talking about some difficult topics. That's pretty much a very stigmatized in our community, Asian Americans. This is how I brought it in, but obviously it's expanded my audience. But it started with Asian Americans and how to talk about mental health.
Well, what's really powerful is not only the humbling journey and story. I feel like you need a story reel on this because like that in itself is a powerful reminder. I know you've shared a lot in your talks and thank you for sharing it with our audience, the humble beginning. It's still a whole other thing to grow. So tell me a little bit more. How did you know that like, okay, there's interest, but maybe I can like grow this into a whole business? Because that's a whole other game.
Yeah, especially if we're talking about workplace, right? I didn't imagine, you hear the typical story of an entrepreneur. I didn't imagine it would be a business that mine's the same thing. So I was like, I started realizing I had to turn it into an LLC to be very practical with you because I was starting to get paid on social media. So when you start getting paid, I was like, well, the legit thing is to do, I should just do the right thing and turn it into an LLC and get a bank account. The typical things you do when you start a business, but I still didn't imagine it being a company, quote unquote, right? Even if it's an LLC on paper, I did that because it was great to get paid through social media, just reels, and you could get paid on watch time views, right? That's the cool thing about social media and Instagram. And so I was realizing, but when I realized it was becoming, when I say a business, I was already a paid speaker, right? For your change provider, my other clinical practice, or I would say private practice. But I realized, wait a second, I'm glad I have an LLC for Noonchi because guess what? I was starting to get speaker requests from Noonchi where they would either DM me or they would email me going, hey, we found you on your Noonchi Instagram. I'm like, what? Like, you literally found me? So I'm laughing about it because I still have that, I guess, even though I'm an entrepreneur, a corporate mindset of going, oh, we found you through LinkedIn. I mean, no, it was Instagram and I think one person was TikTok or something. They looked into it and they found me because they were also interested in K-dramas. And I'm going to just tell you now, the demographic was not what you expected. 10 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago, it was mainly Asian audiences watching K-dramas, C-dramas, J-dramas. This is when I know, oh my goodness, Noonchi LLC might be legit now because it was a corporation, an engineering corporation, white demographic. I'm saying this because I'm talking to a bunch of white legal department folks and I went, this is surreal. I'm in their Tampa office and I'm talking about K-dramas and mental health. That's when I realized I'm turning it into a business. And then it grew from there. Speaker requests, but also, even if they didn't come through me through Noonchi, for instance, I have your change provider. A lot of clients, I have very consistent corporate clients that would say, Jeannie, okay, this year for Mental Health Month, we're thinking of exploring something different. What kind of ideas do you have? And they would ask me because they trust me. I'd be like, you know what idea I have? What do you think about K-dramas? K-drama clips, and I'll tie it to like stress and burnout. They're like, huh? No, but they'd be like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Tell me more. Because by then, Squid Game blew up in 2021. It was well underway. It was like 2020, 21, 2022 is when I was talking about I was building Noonchi. Because again, the credibility I already had, they were like, that's interesting, Jeannie. We're not sure how our audience is. Okay, that might be interesting, but it's different. But I would say 80% of the time I pitched it, they went, all right, let's do it. That's different. And what I said was, I'm still talking about stress. I'm still talking about mindfulness. I'm just going to bring in a couple clips, And sure enough, it was just no brainer for me to connect the two and I would make the connection. And what it did was make it more fun. I'm just going to be honest with you. People would be like, okay, Jeannie's talking about burnout. Oh, we're watching something. This is interesting. Some Asian people on the screen. I mean, but they started liking it. And let me tell you, some clips, if I share the crying clips, you would see people in the audience go like this and they'd be like, I don't know, I'm crying. I don't know. The story is like, I don't even know what's happening, but I say you're crying because you're seeing someone cry. But that's how it grew into that. And that's how I had to turn it into a business.
That's so powerful. For folks who don't speak Korean, can you explain what Noona's Noonchi mean and how did you think of the name?
Yeah, Noona's Noonchi. I wanted something catchy, and I already knew that Noonchi was going to be in the name. So, number one, I wanted Noonchi in the name because not only is it a Korean term, and I wanted to showcase Korean culture, but Noonchi means it's like the Korean superpower of being sharp, having a keen sense of awareness, knowing what's going on around you, and even observing other people, yourself. And in some sense, I would say reading the room, being able to assess things. And I say sharp and quick because you have to think quickly with nunchi. So you know the Korean thing, right? Nunchi pala, nunchi. She's like, oh, you have no nunchi, right? You hear this with Koreans going, nunchi opso. 왜 그래? Right? Which is, what's wrong with you? You have no nunchi. And I'll share this. I never heard that growing up. What I heard as the biggest compliment from adults and elders to me, even as a young child, was, Jeannie has good nunchi. And I would never know what I just do to show that. But I think I was always quick with doing something because I would sense they would want me to do it. So I would just do it, right? Or I would notice somebody needing something and I would just go like this. So that's when my great aunt said to my mom, and I remember this, I was like 7 or 8. She goes, Jeannie has good nunchi. Yeah, nunchi palo. Okay, she's good. And then I'd be like, I think that's a cool compliment. And I'm sharing this because it stuck with me. And then in my work, in therapy, working with mental health, working with people that tell you things like, oh, Jeannie, I'm fine. I'm good. But then my nunchi says, oh, they don't seem good. Or I sense that they're not telling me the truth because they're uncomfortable, right? I had to do that in my work all the time. I cannot take things at face value. That's why nunchi is also very important to me. So I knew nunchi was going to be in there. And honestly, I had to think of something fun that goes with nunchi. I was like, Noona goes well with nunchi. Oh, Noona's nunchi. And Noona means older sister. Technically, in real life, with my sister, I'm a unni, right? So I guess anybody can call me unni, but no, even the women on my fan base or follower base will go, hey, Noona. So it's fine. It's just, they all know what it means. It means older sister, but it's an endearing term. I don't want to seem like a expert level. I want to be like a friend, but someone close to you. So I think that made sense. So it's like older sisters, wise observations. And I think that's the kind of level I wanted to exude as a professional, but also inviting. So it's Noona's Noonchi.
I love how you embedded so many meanings. And to add a little context for those who don't speak Korean, the reason why there's 2 words to say older sister is that 언니 is referred to when a female calls an older sister. So 언니, which is why Jeannie's referring to her younger sister, would call her 언니 because she was a female calling another female. But when a man calls an older sister, it would be Noona. So I have a younger brother, so he would call me Noona because it's a man calling his sister. And so that's the reason why. But I love the context because what Jeannie is highlighting is absolutely true. Check out, folks, if you're listening to some of our other episodes where we talk about Korean language, we speak about how all of those different nuances make a key difference. And Jeannie is highlighting how this very essence of it, which I love. And I love, Jeannie, that it wasn't an accident. Not only the nunchi connecting to you as a person, but also Noona lighting and how you want to be approachable, which is so key. And I know we've been speaking already, diving right into Noona's nunchi and your work in K-drama, but we'll be remiss to ignore the very essence of all of this, which is mental health. How did you first get into it? Why was it important for you? Because I know that story in itself is very powerful and important.
Yeah, and I share this story a lot at technically my 3rd career, I will be 50, or by the time you hear this, I'm 50. And it sounds so old, but 50 is the new 40. I'm just going to say that. But I don't feel 50. I don't know what 50 feels like, but I'm sharing the age because I've been around the block. And technically, when I say 3rd career, I started this a little later, but these days, nothing's really late, right? I just followed the calling, I would say in my early 30s, perhaps. I do remember this. I was the oldest person when I went back to graduate school to get my license. And it wasn't that old, but I just remember going, seen as the mother, because I already was a mother. In some sense, when I decided to just go really deep into this field, if someone had said to me 30 years ago, oh, you're going to be a mental health expert, I'd be like, what are you talking about? I don't even know what mental health is. Because I grew up with no idea of what that was. In my Korean American upbringing, parents don't go, hey, let's talk about stress. Clearly there's stress, right? But we just didn't talk about it. So I was keen. This is the nunchi. Growing up, I was very keenly aware of emotions. As I think back, I was like, oh, I was being, in some sense, training myself for my career. Because when I was a journalist, which is how I started off my career, I left the field. And I still surprised myself going, oh my gosh, I really did leave the field. At like 24, at the height when I honestly just got promoted. That's the story. I just got promoted to entertainment reporter. And I resigned like 2 weeks later. But I already knew I was going to resign even before the promotion because it just didn't feel right to me anymore. And it's interesting how people are like, so you quit because it didn't feel right. But I always went with what made sense. Like I was like, Noonchi. And so a lot of this, the word I was experiencing, nobody knew the word back in the 90s. It was burnout. So at age 24 in the 90s, nobody knew about burnout. Nobody talked about it. But that's what I was experiencing even at a young age. So it doesn't matter how old you are when you experience burnout. But during that time, I decided I better go to business school because what else am I to do as a Korean child of the pressure of parents going, what happened to you? You're a career dropout. I was worried about my parents and what they would think. And it's a lot of that in my culture of like, oh, Jeannie, she was going to be this famous journalist and now she's not. So I was like, oh, you know what? I'm going to apply to graduate school. I want to go to business school. And everyone's like, oh, okay, that sounds good. I was like, oh my God, I don't know anything about business, but I did. And I did get in. But during that graduate school, I disliked it very much. That's actually me putting it mildly, but I finished it. And then I did go into corporate work for a little bit, marketing, and that's what I studied. And I wouldn't say I disliked it. I think I was actually good at it, but just because you're good at something doesn't mean it's quite what you want to do. So it's really when I was raising my young kids at the time, don't ask me why I did this, but I had 4 young kids. I had 3 young kids by the time I was 30. I wouldn't plan that. But then I had my 4th. And when I had my 4th at almost 32, I went, okay, I can't do marketing for the rest of my life. I have 4 kids. It's already crazy in my family life. I don't want to be unhappy like this. And I think I saw my life trajectory of 30 years of being unhappy, which is what I work with now with folks trying to pivot their lives in the workplace. So I decided to start from scratch, even at that age where you have to take some prerequisites. I had to go back to graduate school. You cannot practice therapy without a license and you have to have a master's. So it was all of that I went through. I don't recommend it with 4 kids, but I did it. But it was during that graduate school process when I realized I did like it a lot. It was still difficult. I remember pulling all-nighters, 30, 40-page term papers. I don't even want to talk about it anymore. But I remember going, oh, I love the topic. I'm talking about trauma. It just clicked with me. Everything made sense. And I applied it a lot to my cultural background. I was like, oh, this is what it means in the Asian. Oh my, like it made sense to me. And then I was determined to be the best Asian therapist out there, particularly for the Asian community, because I felt like there wasn't enough by the time I graduated. So then I was starting from scratch. So to this day, I just remember some of my friends growing up going, remember when you wanted to like totally focus on journalism and be this #1 journalist? Now you're using all those skills today. And so that's what I'm doing today by using the journalism skills, business skills to be a speaker on workplace mental health. That's why we're here, right? Dear Workplace.
And it's so timely because one of the things that you're highlighting is how you connect all your past skills to where you are, even though at the beginning, each of those chapters, you weren't aware yet how it could be used. So looking back, what would you say has been helpful to be more than just a traditional therapist because of the different skills and experience you have?
That's exactly what it is. And actually, the very thing at one point I was sheepish about was saying to people, oh, you're 34. Why are you in grad school? You feel a little sheepish, which is so funny now because I know 6-year-olds getting their PhD. So this is a different time and age. But I remember back then I was like, oh, I'm starting from scratch. I decided to pivot from business school. And what ended up happening was even as I was getting my master's and I was studying for therapy, I was actually good at in the therapy program, different things that other therapy students, I'm not saying that they were bad at. I just be like, as I'm reading this case study, I would bring in some angles that people were like, they just thought it was black and white, mental health or a trauma case. But I'd be like, let's think about the business situation they're in. I would just bring a different perspective. And then being a former broadcast journalist, a broadcast reporter, I was very comfortable speaking. So I would always do the presentations, even in business school. And so I think that perfected the speaking. So by the time I finished my graduate degree, got my license, did all the hours to have my own private practice, and I kicked off my private practice, I launched my own private practice because I, by then, was speaking, I would say by accident. Maybe things are not by accident, just by happenstance, that someone needed a mental health speaker back in 2016 for Cisco. It's a big IT firm. And I was in my backyard. And I was like, they just called me, a friend of mine, a friend of a friend went, Jeannie, we need a mental health speaker like in 2 months for Mental Health Month. Can you do it? I was like, what does that look like? Because I don't think I've ever done it. They go, oh, just speak on mental health and put together a PowerPoint. And I did. And it was during that time I was putting together the presentation that something clicked. I went, this is kind of fun. Not only am I about to present this, it's like my content that I'm curating for this organization. But then I was a little nervous, but I kid you not, they didn't tell me it was this operation. I had to go in person, speak to maybe it was like 50, 60 in person. Then they live stream me to their San Jose office and China. So they're like, oh, Jeannie, it looks like there's 650 people online. I was like, oh, okay, I'm really But as I was presenting, it came naturally. I would explain the terms. I would kind of be personal with examples going, hey, for instance, Cisco. And I would just understand the business language. Does that make sense? So I think it made sense that I understood the workplace overall because of my own experience. And then it made it relatable. I did not come in sounding like a clinician. Like I didn't want to sound clinical. I wanted to sound that I knew my stuff, but then it was approachable. And they'd be like, Jeannie made things easy to understand. That's my biggest compliment. I never want to hear someone going, oh yeah, she's an expert. No, I want to hear Jeannie made mental health sound like it's normal. I feel so much better talking to her that I've done my job. And then from Cisco, it just grew from there.
I hear that, and I really appreciate how you've been able to intertwine, but it's so organically, as you have said. Really appreciate it, because I think that's what you're doing now with the stage with K-drama. It's not that perhaps in a way, maybe saying out loud, it's K-drama mental health. Maybe somebody thought of it, but it's nobody has come from your background with mental health, with business and all these aspects, which is so key. And so one of the things that I'm really excited is kind of diving a little bit into it, but also about your personal chapter. You shared about your skills and experiences, but also we'd like to revisit that with your Korean American identity. How did it feel for you growing up as a Korean American? Because we'll be remiss to address that, we're still a minority. You also grew up in a city where you didn't see a lot of people like you. And so how did that influence your relationship with mental health early on? And I'm curious how it has helped you be where you are today. So bring us back to your past as well.
I would say a lot of my work involves the identity. And so what it's done for my own identity is when I'm talking about to everybody else how the intersectionality of mental health and cultural identity is a powerful one, it has helped me help others. So for instance, I can't be authentic in helping others if I'm sitting there in my own world of going, oh, I have problems with my own Korean American identity. Over the years, especially during business school and graduate school, so schooling has helped, where I was breaking down my own cultural conflict. And I want to explain that because you said I did grow up in a very white suburbia, lovely, lovely childhood. I feel very blessed, but I was the lone Asian and maybe there was another family and I always stood out. So it was always one of those where when you're growing up, you don't want to stand out. Now we want to stand out, but growing up, people were like, oh, Jeannie, so your mom has an accent, or, oh, so what kind of food do you eat? And are you from North Korea? I'm bringing those questions in because they do matter. And again, they weren't necessarily ill-intended, but they did make me grow up with a complex. And a lot of Korean Americans will share this with you, right? Going, yeah, so I grew up with an inferiority complex and also feeling like, oh yeah, I don't belong here. So many a times I disliked being Korean. And I'm sharing this because I cannot believe that 30, 40 plus years later, I am using K-dramas in my work to elevate everyone's mental health. I mean, I'm literally saying, hey, this is how Korean dramas have meant to me. And I say this from the get-go, they believe me because they know that it's coming from an authentic place. I share about Korean dramas helping your mental health because they helped mine. As I first watched that first one in 1992, when I was a little torn about who I was 18, I just remember going, oh, actually, I guess Koreans can look cool. And I'm sharing this because, again, I just saw Korea through my parents' eyes, a traditional perspective. And now, as I'm a parent and raising Gen Zs, I'm going, wait a second, I understand my parents. And that happens, right? When you get older and you're like, I totally understand where they were coming from. And now there's such empathy and compassion to where I am today. So what I'm trying to get at is all those angsts and the cultural clashes that my clients go through is actually part of the process. It's part of the identity process. It makes you figure things out. And that's my job, is helping people navigate that, going, yep, that's the conflict. Yes, I have been there as well. However, this is where you are. and it's okay to be where you are. So all of me talking about Korean dramas and Korean culture and then the language and then speaking to non-Asians now about Korean dramas, that's a good question itself. We got to talk about that. I'm sitting here floored, surreal, going, am I talking about Korean dramas to non-Asians in this room who love Korean culture? And that just also validates my work even more, where I'm like, I don't feel like a foreigner anymore. Now, there are times, of course, depending on the situation you're in and circumstances we are in the workplace. Yeah, there are times that I'm treated like a foreigner, right? Oh, you Asian female. And I'm bringing that up because that's very much part of our workplace today. So we have to be aware of that. However, because of the work I do, promoting that belongingness to your identity to others, it makes it easy for me to preach what I teach, right? Or like basically lean into what I teach. I'm like, wait a second. This is what I teach my clients. I shall do the same. And I've never been prouder than ever of my Korean American, I would say bicultural heritage. And the Korean part is most important in the sense of it comes first. We don't say American Korean, we say Korean American.
It's a very fine observation. And I want to revisit to your point, that comment about the diverse demographic that you serve today. Tell me a little bit more. Who are currently your audience that you're serving and how do they find you?
Oh my gosh, it still floors me when the most DMs, direct messages on my social media are non-Asian. Now, of course, I have Asian friends and fans and colleagues and people who love K-dramas, but most of the time it is from Blacks, Latinx, white Americans, South Africans, Europeans that DM me. And they know what it means because I'll share it with them on my stories going, this means so much that you want to converse with me, not just me as Jeannie Chang, but converse going, Jeannie, let's talk about that K-drama, right? Or Jeannie, where can I learn Korean language? And then I'll get pictures of Jeannie, I just made kimbap. I kid you not, I just made kimchi. And then they'll be like, hey, by the way, how do you make your kimchi? And I'll be like, I don't make kimchi. So when I say my mom made kimchi and then I just now eat hers and she'll just give it to me. And then they're like writing me back going, you don't make kimchi? They're like, oh my God, that's so terrible. How come Jeannie? So, because they're just saying you're Korean. And what I love about that though is such an acceptance and appreciation for the Korean culture that if you had told me, 30 years ago that we would see this, I'd be like, I wouldn't believe you, right? And that's so important that my audience is global. And not only is the audience global, fellow influencers who talk about K-dramas, they're non-Asian, okay? The person that runs the biggest Korean American community, who I know is a sweet girl, is from Dubai. And so I'm sitting here sometimes talking to her and I'm watching her as she was out on my tour. I'm sitting there going, okay, you talking about, this is surreal. Wow. But when I say surreal, and they know how I feel, I just say that I appreciate that so much, that they love K-dramas. They're learning the language. They're eating bibimbap, which is that mixed rice bowl, like their life depended on it. And I'm sitting here going, I'm all for it. Like I'm here and soaking it in. So the audience is global and it's only growing more global.
I love that very much. And speaking of which, we do want to talk about the tour, Noona's Noonchi tour that also launched. Now, this is your second year. Last year was such a success. Congratulations. And you sold out already. 2024 is very fast as well. Tell me a little bit more how that idea came together and the beauty of now bringing these people in person to Korea. And for context, we should remind Jeannie's actually not based in Korea.
No, I'm not based in Korea, though I don't mind to be because I love going there. However, I get to go on South Korea tours with my global community that discovered me through the love of K-drama. So I turned it into a business. So this is another company. So let me just talk about the companies I have. Your change provider, Noona's Noonchi and Noona's Noonchi Tours. When I came back from my trip in 2022, I hadn't gone in many years. We went with family. And I documented it, put it on Instagram. And all my followers are like, okay, Jeannie, if you ever decide to go on a K-drama tour or lead one, ha, 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 we'll go with you. And I went, that's funny. I'm not doing what? I'm not a tour. I was just like, that's funny. But then I started thinking about it. And then I saw the response from the community, the global community, especially in the US and Canada, that were like, no, we're being serious. If you put together a tour, we'll follow. So here's the business sense. Good thing I went to business school. I'm like, And I was first thinking what it meant for business because I was thinking, well, nobody is doing a K-drama tour. But then I went through how much of this is going to be passion because it's not easy putting together. I'm not a tour company. I was like, what am I doing? Long story short, fast forward, it took 11 months. But in order to give any kind of tour, I got to be logistic. I got to be legit. So I had to go through the whole legal business process in Korea. Now, I will share this. I am very proud that I got it done because Korean used to be my first language when I was little. But when I'm not as bilingual as I could be, it's all about practice. I'm sitting in an insurance office in downtown Seoul with people talking about liability insurance for a tour company. It's all in Korean and it's in business. And I just remember at one point going, okay, it's out of body experience. I have no clue what they're saying, even though I understand Korean, but it was all over my head, right? But somehow we managed. And I'm sharing this with you because it's just the culmination of this company that I got to do technically as a quote unquote foreigner. So in Korean, they would say, I'm a US citizen, right? So there are many times they refer to me as this is a foreigner-based company, which probably why I took an extra cost. And by the way, I had to get a whole team of attorneys because we're talking tour operator / tourism registration / Jeannie Chang, the foreigner based in US. But I made it work and I launched my 2 tours literally in the nick of time. But the whole point is I did turn it into a business, but really it's not about the business. It's about this global community that when I met them in person, I mean, it's hard to explain, but it helped my mental health. So I thought here I was helping others. I'm like, hey, we're going to create this tour, K-drama sites. Noona's Noonchi, Jeannie Chang is going to add mental health wellness experiences, which I did. But the reward and all the benefits really came back to me going, oh my gosh, I'm meeting these people from all over America and Canada, some from Asia. Now this year, it's going to be even more. And they're seeing and they're loving Korean culture so much. It's just been amazing.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I know one of the other humbling things that you shared offline as we were preparing the story was just how for some of these guests, they've never been to Korea, many of them. But in fact, some of them have never even left the United States. And for them to tell their family, hey, I'm going on a trip that I met on Instagram is really powerful because what you've really done is not only introduce mental health in a very creative, empowering way, but opening the Korean culture and just Korea country as itself to people who have never thought otherwise that they can go see in person, which is really exciting. Tell me a little bit more what's in store for this year for those who still want to attend. Like, is there still spots or is it already sold out and they have to wait for next year?
Well, by the time this comes out, I'm assuming the fall, we only have like 5 to 6 slots left. So I think it's pretty much sold out for this year. So we went from 2 tours in 2023 to 6 because of the demand. And also, let's take a risk. As a risk, I was saying, let's expand it. I say risk because there's a lot of work involved, But
absolutely.
No, you talked about the community. This is still a very much global community. It's grown more this year. And there are some people, I would say 90%, okay, maybe 95% have not been to South Korea on my tours.
Wow.
Right. First introduction. And then there's some people, like you said, I told you, 2 people from last year who have never flown outside the US.
Wow.
They're US citizens. And when they told me that, I went, okay, you never flew outside the America? And they're like, yeah. And I go, and you came to my tour? It's just a little incredulous for me going, what? They're like, yeah. Not only do we know you, like we trust you, Jeannie. That's number 1. Number 2, we love South Korea from the K-dramas. And I went, that's when I was like, oh my goodness, this is surreal. And these 2 women, I'm going to describe their age, 56 and 70. Never been outside the US. And they're business people. You would think, oh, are they home? No, one of them's a corporate executive. Okay. They've been busy, but also nothing really floated their boat to go, I don't care about Europe. I'm not saying they said that. It's just that all of a sudden they're like, I'm going to South Korea. And you're right. Their family members were like, what? Like, what? And then they told me things like, yeah, don't worry. I'm safe. I'm going to someone I met on Instagram. And then everyone's like, you're going on a tour with someone you met on a social media platform. And it's our biggest joke throughout the tour because they're like, we're so glad Jeannie's legit. But I also think they trusted me because I'm talking about mental health. I think that's a very different beast when I'm talking about your well-being and trying to say, hey guys, this is how we deal with depression or trauma. So I'm talking about tough things. I think that helped the credibility, but that's the biggest joke. And this year, I hear it's going to be even more diverse and folks like mother and daughter trips. I've heard someone's celebrating their 65th birthday on my tour. Wow. I'm just so excited.
I'm so excited. Well, we'll certainly be able to make sure listeners get a chance to follow you as well to get update on those stories and learn more. Maybe they'll be able to look out for your 2025 because they already missed this year's because it's already sold out. But I know you're still making it accessible not only through your social media platform and your services and speaking that you continue, but you're also having a book that's coming out. When can we expect, and how would this continue to expand on your work?
Yeah, a book. I actually have a book coming out, yes, on K-dramas and mental health. So everything I just talked about, the platform and how it came about, literally is going through a book published by Wiley, which I'm really proud about. Now, as a licensed clinician, Wiley is known in the education field and research. So to think that they reached out to me because they found out about me through my platform. So never underestimate the power of social media for business. But I wrote a book last year, and I'm proud to say this, but I wrote 98% of it in Korea because I was in Korea last year.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's just feeling that energy of my home country where I was born and my culture, and writing about Korean content and how it helps. And the title is How K-Dramas Can Transform Your Life. So I'm being very bold. I'm saying it's going to transform your life. And then the subtitle is Powerful Lessons on Belongingness, Healing, and Mental Health. So it pretty much tells you what it's going to be about. But I talk about how a K-drama like Crash Landing on You outlines depression. And so there's many things that I hope people walk away, not just going, oh, I'm going to watch K-dramas. That's not my intent, actually. My intent is for you to read this book and go, oh, I better understand depression. That's what this looks like. Wow. And then this K-drama can help me see what it looks like. And it's just maybe using it as an example to share stories, but I'm really talking about mental health. At the end of the day, that's my goal. Yeah. And so that's this book, and it comes out during Mental Health Month in May. So it's good timing. It's a little scary though, because I'm like, who's going to read a book about K-dramas? I always go, oh my gosh, I know K-dramas are global, but it's also that fear of, are people going to read this book? So I hope so. That's my hope. Yeah.
Well, we certainly will. And folks, will be make sure that we have all the links. You know where to find them. We always add all the comments in the links. So that way, you know where to follow our guests and learn more about them. We covered so many different rounds, but one of the things I love doing, especially for this series, as we talk about Korean culture and business owners, is doing a little rapid round on Korea. And so I'm going to ask you some quick questions if you can do a little rapid round with me. So one, Jeannie's favorite Korean food would be?
Oh, tteokbokki.
Why?
Because I love spiciness, I love the texture, and it just comforts me. Plus, it's a classic street food, and I'm really simple. I don't want something fancy. I just want the real street food that people eat on the street. So that's my favorite one. And then hotteok is second. Hotteok is the sweet pancake, also a street food. So I'm really simple. I don't need something like, people are like, really? I go, yeah, just give me tteokbokki. In fact, if I don't have tteokbokki once a week when I'm in Korea on the street, then you see me go through withdrawal. Going, where's tteokbokki? I need tteokbokki right now.
Reach out to her for tteokbokki and recommendations on it. Favorite Korean word?
Word? It would be a tie. Noonchi and 정.
What's 정 for those who don't know?
So with an emotional, I would say an attachment, right? That the Korean people have. It also can be bad where you feel this bad 정 to like somebody as well. I want to make that clear. But it's emotional. It's I would say innate in Korean culture to feeling an affinity or a kinship. And the 정 that you see in Korean culture is this classic scenario. I'll show you. You're walking down the street and you think no one's noticing you, but you drop something, and then like a halmoni or a harabachi usually picks it up for you. I'm sitting there going, oh, I was going to get it. But that's an example of 정 going, oh, I saw that you dropped something. Just that affinity and affection for even strangers. So much part of the Korean culture. Maybe that is my favorite word, because it's so, I would say, endearing, and it's very much part of our culture.
I know this is going to be a hard one, but favorite K-drama at the moment?
At the moment? Well, my favorite K-drama all time is My Mister, Naya Ajashi. That's a no-brainer. It's a little bit of a sad, melancholy one with a lot of hope at the end. That's all I'm going to say. But my favorite current one, if you're watching this now, it's going to be over by the time you hear this. It was Marry My Husband. So it's kind of like, it's a fantasy / a little bit of a thriller. Dramatic, but why do I like it? Because you see the female character, yes, I'm female, so I identify with that, where you see her empowered to change her life because she has a second chance at life. And obviously it's a fantasy because it's not really real, but to see somebody decide to change her life circumstances because she wants a better life for herself, I think it's really cool to see that. So let's Marry My Husband. It's fun.
Very cool. If somebody's visiting Korea for the first time, what should they absolutely do and where should they go?
Absolutely do is eat, obviously, right? So please eat.
Yes.
But people don't, I mean, I think they know that. I think that's actually one of the things that my foreigner tour people look forward to eating. So, but not just don't sit in a restaurant so much. Go see the street food that you see in K-dramas and stand and eat like people normally do. And also slurp noodles, right? You slurp very Korean because to show that you love it. In Western culture, it's rude, but in Korean culture, it is like showing, hey, I love this food. Then another thing that I really think you need to do is not so much the tourist spaces, but I think going to the cafes. The cafe sounds so modern and trendy, but you get to observe people. And that's where I see the Chong too, where, like I said, someone might notice something and they'd be like, oh, your sweater's on the ground. I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying little things at a cafe. I love the cafes in Korea. So I highly recommend that. And then, of course, any of the sites. But that's a lot I just threw you away. Definitely food. What I'm trying to say is immerse yourself in local living. As Korea has become very foreigner friendly too, meaning you can get around easily on your own without really speaking the language.
Speaking of cafe, one thing that I always still have to transition whenever I'm back in Korea is like leaving my stuff at a cafe. And they're like, Monica, why are you carrying out your purse? Just leave it in the chair. Because in America, you would never think twice to leave. I would always make sure maybe I leave my jacket if it's like not expensive to like hold the seat, but I would still always want to sit next to it and it's not that I don't trust people here. It's just that culturally you wouldn't. But like in Korea, like you literally even put your purse and like laptop out there and you go to the bathroom and nobody takes it. In fact, people out there look out for it. I'm like, hey, somebody's sitting there. And so
I have to share a story where people, the locals, even foreigner locals will say, Jeannie, not only did I leave my laptop, cell phone, backpack to hold my spot, they said they walked home to go to the bathroom because they just felt more comfortable going to the bathroom and came back.
God.
And I said, how long was that? They go, oh, it was like 45 minutes. And I was like, so you left your laptop, cell phone, except your keys for 45 minutes. They go, this is what they said to me. They go, yeah, I didn't want my spot taken. And I just remember going, but you know what? I see it because the cafes are so popular. They're like, grab a spot, but they don't care. But nobody steals. No, nobody. That's great, right? Let's hope that never changes. But I love that they're like, just leave your stuff. And I'm like, I'm from the US. we don't do that. Okay. We don't leave anything.
Yeah.
But that's what I love.
No, it's really powerful. No, Jeannie, thank you so much. It was such a treat having you. You shared so many different wisdoms and insights. Really appreciate it. I know you already have many followers and fans, but two final thing is, as we're talking about mental health, I am also wondering, how are you managing your mental health as you continue to expand and grow? Because I'm thinking out loud. I'm like, that's a lot of things you're doing. So if you can share a quick tip.
Sure.
And then I also would love to any final words of wisdom as we wrap up.
This is also part of my final words of wisdom. I can't do my job. I have left the term self-care as in people hear the word self, especially in Asian culture, and think that's selfish. I reframe that saying, well, actually, no, it's self-full, because how am I supposed to take care of you as a client if I'm a mess, right? Or how am I supposed to be a good mother or even a wife or a colleague if I am stressed out? I really do work hard at it. It is not easy. And there are times when I'll text you, Monica, going, oh my God, I'm stressed out. I don't make myself isolated. That's a very non-Asian thing. I think in that sense, growing up in the US, I lean on friends. I lean on community. I'll even ask people, hey guys, what do you recommend? And if they actually say, Jeannie, stop doing this, then I'll be like, oh, you're right. I better have better boundaries. So I seek advice. Just because I give that advice for mental health, I seek it just as equally. So I think that's important to know, that I'm always learning myself. And then number two is it's a dynamic process. It is not me going one and done. I'm good, taking care of my mental health today. No, every day I wake up and I have to reset going, oh, okay, this is stressing me out. Let me work this out. Or this is making me happy. Let me do more of this. So every day I tell people, just like you're so good with physical hygiene, brushing teeth, washing our hair. I hope we do that. But mental health hygiene is just as important. And it's part of my daily day. When I go, okay, mental health hygiene, oh my goodness, I didn't do anything today. God, my mental health is a mess, right? That's what I mean. So just like your physical hair would be a mess if you didn't take care of it, you got to take care of your mind, right? So, and your mind controls so much of your physical health. So that's an everyday process, my hygiene for mental health.
Love it. Well, Jeannie, thank you so much. What's the best way folks can stay in touch with you and follow up?
Instagram, LinkedIn, I'm on all the socials. But yeah, I pride myself if you DM me on Instagram, not like I'll always respond, but I read them and then I'll respond in a public way. Sometimes go, someone posted this question. So keep in touch with me on social media, especially Instagram.
Sounds great. Well, we'll have all the social tag. Thank you so much, Jeannie, for joining us. Folks, again, we'll be back with another story next week. And you are tuning into Dear Workplace. I love that we got a chance to explore this. And we'll definitely get a chance to think about this the next time I watch K-drama. Thank you, Jeannie. Be sure to check out her content and follow her at Noona's Noonchi so that you can learn more. But speaking of which, some of us might be wondering, well, what about our youth and our next generation? Is there perhaps something that I can do, anything that is related to Korean culture that could inspire us? Or maybe even our Korean diaspora's next generation? Lucky us, our next guest is the very person who has been thinking about this for many decades and has some thoughts, as well as perhaps a solution that you can tune into. So, join us next week where we're going to get a chance to meet a friend who's going to share all about that. You're listening to Dear Workplace by Innovators Box. I'm Monica Kang, and I'll see you next week. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in to another episode at Dear Workplace by Innovators Box and your host, Monica Kang, me. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation. Today's episode is possible thanks to a wonderful team who has dedicated their time and making sure you hear the quality research that you heard today. Want to shout out to audio engineering and production lead by
Sam Lamerd,
audio engineering assistant by
Ravi Ladd,
website and marketing support by
Cree Panday,
graphic support by
Leah Orsini,
Christine Eribal,
original music by Innovators Box Studios, and executive producing, directing, writing, researching, hosted by me, Monica Kang, founder and CEO of Innovators Box. Thank you so much. Your love and support and sharing means the world to us. Please send us any questions and thoughts you have and what you want to learn more on next, and we'll dive right into it. Thank you and have a wonderful day. See you soon.